All right. All right, bro. It's hot. Go ahead.
All right, cool. Let's go. I'd like to introduce to the show my favorite podcaster of all time. No cap. It's not every day I get to have my favorite podcaster on. I've been listening for about a year now, but I be catching every single episode. He's the host of the Juan on Juan podcast. Juan Ayala. What's up, Juan? How you doing today, man?
What's up, bro? I've never had an intro like that. What's up, man?
Yo, so for all my guests who are not aware, this is a different kind of guest, all right? He ain't a pro skater, he ain't a DJ, but he's my favorite podcaster. He has the one-on-one podcast where he has esoteric discussions with all kinds of people, and he also runs one called Occult Book Club where he breaks down occult books from the past, and I've been listening to him for a year now, so I'm very excited to have him on the show. So, what's up, man?
Not much, dude. Just hanging in there. I'm excited to talk to you. I've been listening to a lot of this drum bass. I didn't really know what it was called, but I've been tuning into some of your shows, and I've been listening to some playlist on YouTube, and it helps me get in the zone, bro.
You're in the zone. You're fully in the Hopper 1000 zone now. So I've been listening to you for about a year. It started, I had a job working in a jewelry store. I was repairing jewelry, vintage jewelry. You know, I was staring into these stones and jewels, and I was listening to Occult Book Club. And I just fell in love with the podcast. And especially when I found out you're from Florida, that's what really was the kicker. I was like, all right, so this is some Florida boys breaking down all this esoteric knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should get Paranoid American on, bro. He's legit.
I really want him up too, Thomas.
Yeah, I was actually eating lunch with him today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we went to go eat tacos because we just launched a new pamphlet. Got the homunculus owner's manual pamphlet that went live today. So I was picking those up.
It's like a chick comic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yes. So you and Thomas be doing everything. Y'all got comic books coming. You are on the podcast game 24/7. It sounds like I be catching every single episode.
Yeah, I'm a podcaster, and like I said, I'm just a regular guy, man. I got a family. I got two kids, a wife, and I just hang out, man. And I like to do. I I stay up late a lot of times, and I like to do research on the occult and the esoteric, and I just like whatever is interesting. It doesn't have to be necessarily occult or esoteric, but I think that humanity has been questioning reality itself and like what our purpose is and why are we here. And then I think that the occult and the esoteric, it paints a picture of the intricacies of reality. So a way of manipulating reality to bend to your will. And I think that's what draws me to the subject, because I mean, right, as growing up, we've always been asked, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? Like we've always been trained with that question. Like, what do you who says you have to actually be something, right? Who the American dream, you got to be asleep to believe it, because we're put in this box of having to work 9 to 5s or even longer. Some people work 14 hours, 15 hours a day, right? And it's almost like they're suppressing the human consciousness by doing this and dumbing us down. We have more information than we ever have since the beginning of time, yet people are more ignorant than they've ever been, bro. Right. So it's like those type of topics that I touch on, right? Because I'll be 100%. When I first started, I didn't even believe in magic, dude. Like, magic to me was stupid. Magic was dumb to me. I was like, magic? What is that? That's stupid. That's just such a dumb concept. And then when you start digging deeper, you go, okay, well, magic is just a word for something that we can't really explain, that some people are able to tap into and leverage to their own will. But the greatest occultists of all time always died penniless and alone and insane. So is there such thing? I don't know. But maybe Magic is convincing yourself of a state of mind and putting yourself in a hypnotic state to believe whatever it is that you're feeding yourself. You know what I mean?
We are going so deep, only a few minutes in, man. Oh, but I totally agree with you when you say they ask us at school, what do you want to be? It's like I already was being as soon as I came out the womb. I'm a spirit. Like I already am me. Like but society is more about, oh, but how are you going to make tax revenue for us? And that's America, you know. It's all about money, but thankfully I'm a little bit outside the system because now I just do art full time. So
Really, that's dope, man.
yeah, but you know, so I just get to just think about this shit all day because I just be hiking, walking around, drawing pictures and stuff. And I think who we really are is what's inside here. It's not about your job title or your prestige. I mean, that those things are cool too, of course, but it's all about what's in here. It's like, so when society tells you, oh, you got to be this, it's like you already are what you are. You just have to discover it, and you got to put the time in. And that's kind of what I think magic and alchemy is the inner looking to figure out who you really are, not what society tells you you are.
Mm-hmm. And it's like how Plato, right? You're talking about Plato said that we already know everything. We just have to remember it. So we're born already knowing and having access to all the knowledge. You just have to
Yeah,
remember it slowly, right? You ever
yeah,
get deja vu? But like, damn, I've been here before. I think
yeah.
that's what that's about. Whenever I have a synchronicity or deja vu, and I think I don't know if you as an artist can relate, but synchronicities to me when we're putting out art, right? Because I think that art is alchemy, right? It's an alchemical process. You put a little bit of yourself into the, like a piece of your, not, I wouldn't say soul, but a piece of yourself into whatever it is that you're putting out there.
Mhm.
And I feel that when you're putting out content that people are going to consume and interact with, whether it be a hyper sigil like a comic book, where I'm literally in a comic book and people are reading it and maybe perhaps charging it by reading it and putting their energy into it too, right? Using their imagination as they're going along the ride. That powers something. And dude, like whenever I put something out, I'll have the craziest synchronicities. Like this past week, I had the wildest synchronicities before Mind Unveiled dropped the video that I had helped him with.
Yeah.
And it was to the point where people were commenting stuff on my videos about things that I was talking right now in like a studio. Like this is a virtual studio. This is not live. There's no way that they could have
Mhm.
known what I was talking about. And it was very specific. I was having a conversation about why we never see our phones in our dreams. And literally I had somebody comment as I'm talking about that on my Instagram about why don't we ever see our phones in our dreams?
Right. Yeah.
So it's like we're tapping in, or what, I don't know if it's something either trying to send a message. And then there was something else that happened, and the week was just weird. And yeah, I've been having a little, my dreams have been a little bit off this week, but I think it's because I'm sobering up from not smoking. So I don't
Well,
know.
then you're gonna get hit with the fucking semi truck of dreams, my friend. That's what happens
Yeah,
when you get off that cush. You start
yeah.
having all kinds of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
You touched on two different things I wanted to talk about is when you said what Plato said, we must remember who we are. That reminds me of the old Gnostic hymn of the Pearl. Do you know about that one?
No, bro, enlighten me, please.
It's a I'm just gonna tell it in my own language, but I'll summarize the hymn. Basically, it's about a young prince born to a king in Egypt, and he's born royalty. He's born royalty, and they send him on this quest to find this pearl, and he has to go all through Egypt, and he has to cross a river, and there's a pearl that's being guarded by a dragon or a serpent, right? So that's his quest that his parents have given him. You must find the family pearl. So he leaves royalty to go on his quest, and while he's going through Egypt, he gets distracted by all the people and all the food, specifically food. So they give him all this food and drink, and he falls asleep. Like he literally falls asleep. So when he's just partying with all these people, that he falls asleep. And synchronicity, I'm kind of getting distracted by some stuff outside right now, but anyways, so he falls asleep, and then after a few years he wakes up in Egypt and he's like, oh shit, like I'm supposed to be finding this pearl. So then he wakes up and he goes to find the pearl, and he fights the serpent, defeats it, and then as soon as he grabs that pearl, all his ancestors come out and like give him the royal robes back, and he remembers his royalty and his divine, like his birthright royalty that he was supposed to have, but he forgot.
Maybe that's what the Golden Fleece is about. I mean, we're getting into alchemy, and we have all these different stories about different artifacts that. Let me look up the Golden Fleece here real quick, because I recently covered. Let's see. Golden Fleece, a fleece of golden wool, winged ram, rescued. So maybe it's a symbol for something, right? That they, because they would always wear it. You have Rudolph II, which is a very interesting point. It's a very interesting point in time, because they're trying to, right? It's the spark of the scientific revolution, and all the greatest minds are coming out, right? You're a class bearing the insignia of the Order of the Golden Fleece. Wow. So again, let me pull up this picture real quick. It's pretty dope. But I think that's what all these elites and all these greatest occultists, right? This is the...
Wow, that is a beautiful piece of work right there.
Yeah, bro. I mean, you got, right? Art went from like this to whatever it is now.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, people will tell me, oh, Andy Warhol can compete with, like, Michelangelo. And I go, no.
Oh, no.
You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way, bro. It's different, man.
Well, on the more worldly conspiracies, you're probably aware about how society was completely subverted in the early 1900s, and everything changed from there. Postmodernism starting after World War II, and after that, it's a wrap for art for the most part. And unfortunately, I mean, you had that guy on recently, right, who talks about the Beatles.
The Beatles.
With he's how Tavistock Institute was behind the Beatles, and like it was all like a psyop.
Who was that, bro?
His name is like Paul is Dead channel, but I guess I confused you.
Yeah, no, I don't know who that is.
You listen to a lot of stuff. That's a good one to get into, though. It's all about how the Beatles is fake.
So, well, I mean, yeah, 100%. They're probably engineered. And the Golden Fleece, bro. The legend goes that anyone who possessed the fleece would be considered a true ruler. So it's like, again, like a talisman. It's got like George Washington's chair being present, right? Like, I think all these sort of things are talismans that you're able to charge, and it has a little piece of, right, for augmentation purposes of your magical power or whatever it is that you're trying to put out into the world. So definitely, there's a reason why they have these stones under the thrones of the elites, right? They talk about the Ben stone, or the cornerstone, or the whatever they call it, the philosopher's stone. Sometimes even I've heard it called that. So I don't know, man. I think that reality itself, history is one of those things that definitely has been manipulated. And I've always told people, his story, to the victor the spoils. Whoever wins, and dude, I've seen this firsthand. Like when I was doing that episode with Mind and Veil, I'm sure he's gonna come out with a video of it. But while we were going through these archives of illuminated manuscripts and different books and all these different things of like the 1400s, 1500s, we were encountering that some of these works were defaced. Some of the actual books themselves would have talismans etched on them, and they would be etched away. Somebody would scratch off either pictures or things that were considered talismans in the work. And then when you look into that, it's done on purpose. Now, who did it? We don't know. It could have been the church. It could have been somebody at the institution that was that's holding the works. Like, we don't know who defaces it, but point being that some people don't want this knowledge to get out. Now, who is that they? We don't know. It could be the elites. It could be just some regular guys like, oh, let me just scratch it. Let me just graffiti this or take this off. We don't know, but point being that they're defacing these works to occult information, to hide information, to hide history. But it would pose the question of, why would you want to do that? Is the information that dangerous that you wouldn't want it to get out to anybody else? Mm-hmm. What reason would that be? You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and I've seen it firsthand too, that there are scholars, unbiased scholars, right? A scholar is supposed to report history, supposed to interpret history for us. And certain grimoires, for example, I'll use a grimoire that doesn't align with their spiritual views, they'll leave out whole entire sections, bro, that they won't translate. Nah, that's just too vulgar to translate. Well, who are you to determine if it's too vulgar or not? If it's history and you're translating the whole thing, don't nitpick history, right? Translate the whole thing. So take that into consideration when it comes to magical works that have nothing to do with religion. Now take religious scripture into account. How has that been perverted? How many times have they mistranslated or misquoted or changed something up to fit the narrative of whoever was? That's why I love about the Gnostic texts, bro, that they were unfiltered through the Roman lens. So you get a true, let's say it was fan fiction, right? The Nag Hammadi or the Dead Sea Scrolls, let's say it was fan fiction. That was just some people writing about stuff because they liked it. Mm-hmm. Let's write about Judas. Let's invert this whole story. Let's say Judas is the good guy in this story. Let's say that Jesus hated the other disciples and he loved Judas, right? Or let's write about how Judas might have been the one crucified on the cross and not Jesus. Right, let's get weird.
Crazy with the fan fiction right there.
You guys get crazy with the fan fiction, but it exists. Mm-hmm. And I think, bro, that the reason that, like, for me, that's where it all started. It started with the religion. And when I started to question my religion and asking people in my church the questions of like, yo, 2 of every animal? Are you sure about that? You know the meme, are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? You know, like 2 of every animal and in an ark, a vessel? And then I'm like making connections like, yo, Noah might have been an alchemist, bro.
Well, off top, do you know the first animal mentioned in the Bible? Do you know?
No, what is it?
Well, most people would say the serpent, probably from Genesis and in the Garden of Eden. That's what I thought too. But I looked it up. The first animal mentioned is a whale. And that kind of threw me off because it's in Genesis 2. It's when God is creating everything. It specifically says God created the whales.
Bro.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting? Because I thought it was a snake, you know.
There's no, what translation is that, dog?
Look it up.
Genesis what?
I don't have it. I don't have the numbers, man.
That's very interesting. I'm going to tell you why it's very... Genesis
1:21.
King James and God... Wow, bro.
Yes, that's the first mention of any animal in the Bible.
So I'm going to tell you why this is so mind-blowing to me right now, because I had a wild synchronicity one time with Nick Hinton, and I talked about it on the show before, but the synchronicity was him and I were going back and forth because I was going to have him in my comic book, and we were talking, I think it was off air, and he mentioned to me a story about space whales and whatever, right? We're like, okay, space whales, that's cool. I'll have you in the comic book as a whale, as a space cowboy type of thing, like a space pirate. And like, you'll have this ship, you'll have everything, and you're going to be hunting space whales. Well, it turns out that I forgot the damn. Oh, okay, yeah. So I hire the artist that's going to do it. And I didn't really focus on it because the one that hires the artists is Paranoid American. And I didn't really focus on it. But I knew about the story of Merrick Casaubon, which was a guy who had some literature of John Dee. And he found the literature in these books inside an old cabinet that John Dee had. and it had a hollow bottom. And one time their maid was burning books, right, to keep the fire going. And it turned out it was from books that she found in this hollowed out bottom of this cabinet, right? And we always hear that, like, yo, like the Nag Hammadi library, it started with this lady that found the text and they were burning it to keep the fire going because they had no idea what they were burning. So similarly, this story, right, reflects in history. And so when he realizes what she's burning, he takes everything out and he starts to interpret it all. And it was John Dee's magical journals. So the journals of some of his seances. And he's got, I believe it's like a total of like 5 different texts. Mm-hmm. And it's just, he journaled everything from the time that they woke up during his day to the time that they went to sleep, everything about their magical workings, their seances, because they didn't see it as that. They didn't see it as the occult. He was a scientist. Yeah. Right? He was studying reality. That's what it was. But during his time, that was considered blasphemy. So he had to be very careful how he went about it. So he was conducting experiments. And so the Mesmeric Casaubon, there's one particular section in the book, and it's a book from 1619 or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's very old. And in the book, there's the account of when the angels showed Edward Kelly and John Dee God. And they revealed God to them. They both shared a vision together. And the vision was a whale covered in many eyes. Wow. Was God. A whale covered in eyes, right, was God. Not some old white dude sitting in a throne in heaven, right? No, it was a whale. So now you're telling me that verse 121 of the King James version of all of them, right? And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. I didn't even know that. So we have the great whales. Now, the interesting part of the synchronicity was that I tell Thomas, I go, hey, listen, bro, I want Nick Hinton in the comic book. I need you to hire an artist. I want you to do a space pirate, and I want you to do the depiction of John Dee and Edward Kelly, the whale covered in eyes. He's like, all right, cool, I got you. He finds an artist, and I end up paying the artist through PayPal. I didn't even look his name or nothing. I just paid him, right? I just sent him the deposit, whatever, cool. And then homeboy follows me on Instagram. I'm thinking nothing of it. And then homeboy is starting to work on the project, and I see his name. His name's Angel. Oh. I go, whoa, what the fuck? And then his last name, Casaubon. What? I promise you, bro, his last name is Casaubon. So we have Angel Casaubon, right? Yeah. Guess what his favorite thing to draw is? Whales. Angels. Okay. So he likes to draw angels, dude named Angel. And then we're talking about, right, the angels showed John Dee. So we had like this weird, wild synchronicity. And we're like, yo, that's crazy. And like, how specific. And I wouldn't have noticed. And then when I told Thomas, because Thomas doesn't really believe in any of this stuff, I'm like, yo, bro, this is
which is crazy because to me, I'm like, you should be the main one believing in all this stuff.
He doesn't, bro. He's not into the woo-woo.
I like his skepticism.
Yeah, he's very skeptic. And then when I told him, I was like, yeah, bro, that's pretty weird. I'm like, yeah, that was a wild one. That was like one of the more wilder ones where I were like, and then when I told Nick about it, he was just blown away. He's like, bro, this is crazy. It's like we literally made contact with an angel. We literally made contact with like an actual angel. And it started off with like studying this, John Dee is one of my favorite topics, like that whole Enochian magic, because it's really at the base of a lot of religions. It's at the base of the Golden Dawn. It's at the foundation of what's the other one too? The Mormons, I think it is.
Yeah, Joseph Smith.
Yeah, supposedly he had some golden tablets. So it's at the core of a lot of things, and I think that system in particular, the Enochian system, I've heard it put that it's one of the more powerful magical systems, and it's very dangerous because you're literally giving these entities a solid medium, right? When you give an entity a talisman or an amulet, they can, right, the genie in the bottle or the Terminator, the Golem, bro, where it goes on a rampage and it can take you out. So I think it's a double-bladed sword. And I recently told somebody who's a paranormal investigator, I was like, yo, bro, I know you like to talk to entities, and he'll do the him to pan to summon demons and Bigfoot and stuff. And I go, bro, why don't you, again, I'm not telling, this is not medical advice or anything, but why don't you try the Enochian magic, dude? I want to see what goes on if you try and do some grid magic right there, bro. And so he said he's going to try it, but.
So you're just pawning it off on him just in case it goes haywire?
Listen, dude, the guy's done a lot worse stuff than I would ever do. I'm not going to do it, that's for sure. So he's trying to really break through to the other side. And I go, okay, man, that's what Crowley was doing to break through to the other side. So I'm just dropping the seed. And if he takes it, then I'd be interested to see that video.
Yeah. Oh, man, so much running through my head right now. The first thing, just to get it out there, is that when you were talking about John Dee's journals being burned in the fire, the thing that it sparked for me is that everything is fire, fire, fire. Manly P. Hall writes about the initiates of the flame. And to me, that could just be some sort of allegory for this is a text from the initiates of the flame, or kind of as a calling card, if you believe that about the text.
I think I believe it's a reference to alchemy, because alchemy is called the religion of fire. Yeah. Because you have the furnace, you have the dragon. And I was going to tell you that the dragon symbolism, when you were telling that story at the beginning, which I've never heard that story before, but the idea of slaying the dragon, mm-hmm. the sword is the monad, right? The dragon represents materiality, and the warrior, I believe, and again, I'm rusty on my Pythagorean symbolism, but the warrior, I believe, was the triad. And what I love about the Pythagorean system, and I always refer back to, right, John Dee was a mathematician. I think mathematics is at the core of reality itself. And the thing about the Pythagorean system is that it builds on top of itself. So you go from when you add another monad to the monad, you get the duad, right? Duality. So you have a twofold reality. And then when you add another monad to that, so 2 + 1 equals the triad, and they build on top of that. And you can switch it around, so you can have, right, the triad with the heptad, the number 5, and it'll equal 8, right? Because it always goes. It's like the building blocks of life. And the Pythagoreans, they worshipped the cube, and I think that the cube, right? They called the cube the father of all number, right? And they referred to God, and I have it somewhere in one of my journals, but they called it God, and I'm gonna mess it up. But anyways, they believe that the cube was at the center of it all. And the way I see it is that some people, right, we have the matrix and how people see number. Well, some people actually see number, bro, synesthesia. They see numbers and colors in front of them, and they don't know why. How you know that meme where he's like thinking in his head? I don't know if that what was that movie? Was it?
I think you're giving me synesthesia right now.
Was it Limitless?
Yeah, Limitless. Yeah.
Where he sees everything. Well, that's an actual. That's an actual thing, bro. It's a phenomenon that they don't know why it happens to people, but it does. So.
I think it happens to all your listeners when you start talking crazy. It happens to me. I'm like, I'm starting to see all this. Especially, all I can think about right now is pi, and Pythagoras' relation to pi. Because what does pi do? It just goes and it builds off itself. It spirals and just builds and builds, and it could be endless.
Does it really? I didn't know that, bro.
Well, yeah, because what is that called? I'm an artist, I should know, but what is that spiral called?
The Fibonacci sequence?
Fibonacci sequence, yeah. Well, pi is encoded. Pi is encoded in the Fibonacci sequence.
Oh, and I should probably know this because I recently used the Fibonacci sequence in a thumbnail that I made. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're just guys from Florida at the end of the day.
Yeah, we're just regular guys from Florida at the end of the day, yeah. That's weird, man. It's
Florida
really
man
interesting.
talking about Pythagorean mathematics and vortex math and all this craziness.
Yeah, but that's what people don't realize, that I'm just another regular guy trying to literally talk about concepts and topics that people spend their entire lives researching, and then here I am just making like a two hour YouTube video on it, and I researched it for a couple of weeks, and then like here I am. You know what I mean? Like, but
Well,
it's fun, bro.
Longo would say there's something in the water with our kind of our kin,
Mhm.
you know.
Most
Because
definitely, bro.
well, one thing I wanted to bring up for sure is that you know, one of my favorite things to study, and I've actually never talked about it on my show personally. But you know what I'm going to ask you about, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Korshan.
Yeah, bro.
Cyrus Teed in the Korshan Revolution. So, to get into it for y'all, your listeners, and my listeners, because I never discussed it, I grew up in a very strange hometown called Fort Myers, Florida, the southwest coast of Florida. And if you go there now, it's a tourist town. It's a bunch of old people. It's old people, it's hoods, and it's rednecks, and it's those three things. You know, we got Circle K's on every corner. You wouldn't think it's a magical place, yet it is very magical grounds. If you look into the history of Fort Myers and 239 in general, and why that is because the Fort Myers area and Estero, well, first and foremost, it's Seminole lands, the Seminole tribe. And very spiritual things were happening with the Seminole tribe. I don't know that much about that. But what I do know is about what happened in the late 1800s, early 1900s with a man named Cyrus Teed. So there was an old occultist in Chicago, and his name was Cyrus Teed. And he was just like everyone else at the time. They're starting to experiment with electricity, and he was doing sciences and he was doing occult stuff. And he was in Chicago, and basically he was experimenting with electricity in his warehouse, and he got shocked so bad that he got knocked out. You know, you can imagine what it's like experimenting with electricity in the 1800s. Bad things are bound to happen. So this guy gets knocked the flip out by an electric burst. And when he's knocked out, he claims that God appeared to him as a woman in this female spirit and walked him through all of the mysteries of the earth. And so God is telling him all the mysteries, but one of the main mysteries that God told him while he was knocked out is that the earth is a hollow sphere and we live inside of the earth, right? So he wakes up, he now has the secrets of the universe. He now thinks that we live inside of a eggshell earth, and he tries to tell everyone in Chicago, he's like, "Yo, I just discovered everything and I know electricity too. What's up?" And he tries to start something, and he just like it just can't get off the ground at first. You know, he basically just has a girl by his side that believes all of it. He ain't really have nothing, but he's trying to start a cult basically. He always wanted to try to start a cult. There's actually a kind of a humility to his story because he's really just a regular guy at this point. He's a regular guy who had a weird experience, but he's trying to tell the world about it. So he starts telling everyone in Chicago, and then he gets a few more people interested. And the people of Chicago, they weren't really messing with him that much. So he was like, "Oh man, I gotta go down." He's like, basically, God told him he had to start the New Jerusalem that is mentioned in the Bible. So he's like, took his couple people from Chicago, and he's like, "All right, I'm going down to Florida." He said, "I'm going down to Florida. I'm gonna start the New Jerusalem." So he treks down with a couple people. He meets this guy who has just like a giant forest. It's just like nothing, bro. Like a giant forest. He convinces the guy that he's about to start the New Jerusalem, and that guy just gives up his land immediately. He's like, "All right, you just take this land and just do what you're going to do with it." Like, he was fully on board with the idea. So Cyrus Teed and his followers start clearing out this forest and start creating a utopia in Fort Myers, Florida. esoteric or estero to be exact. But they start creating this utopia, right? And they believe that the earth is hollow, we live inside. They believe they believe in celibacy, so they're not allowed to fuck, which is, to me as a cult, I'm like thinking, how the hell are you guys gonna promote y'all's view if y'all ain't even having kids or whatever? But whatever. But they're just doing all kinds of crazy stuff on this sacred land. And anyways, they're doing experiments. They're electrocuting each other's genitals and stuff to try to like duplicate the experience that Cyrus had. But they're just doing all kinds of stuff. They did create somewhat of a utopia in Fort Myers, so much so that it gets the attention of Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, and they move there just to see what's up with the New Jerusalem. And they get summer homes in Fort Myers, Florida. You can still, to this day, you can take a tour of Henry Ford and Thomas Edison and Cyrus Teed's homes. But they go just to link with him, and they're like, yo, what are you talking about? Like, the earth is hollow. Like, you met God. It was a woman. Like, what are you onto? And by the way, for those who don't know, both Edison and Ford are both Masons. So you already know they're tapped into some knowledge. And they basically just study with him. So Thomas Edison and Cyrus Teed are just doing electrical experiments in Fort Myers, Florida. And yeah, just to summarize it, is like my hometown growing up. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, early 2000s. I just saw cars on big rims. I'm going to McDonald's every day. I'm listening to 3 6 Mafia in my house. I'm like feeling like Fort Myers is kind of a spiritually dead place on the outside, but it's on sacred grounds, and it has that feeling. It still has that feeling if you know how to tap into it. So it's just always been one of my favorite things. And I actually went camping there as a child, and I remember I went camping on the Korshan Utopia, and my mom was telling me what they believed about. They believe that the stars in the sky, those are poked holes in the eggshell, and it's just super magical. Also, one thing too, Fort Myers has tons of rare plants that Cyrus Teed and Thomas Edison planted, like plants that do not exist in Florida. Typically they exist in Fort Myers. Oh wow. Oh yeah, here we
My bad,
go.
bro. Wrong screen.
I was like, oh, you're about to run an ad.
No, no, no.
No, but yeah, you got the images right here. Oh yeah. And one thing though is Thomas Edison and Henry Ford, the only thing they did not agree with him on was the whole hollow earth. They was like, nah, you're tripping on that. We don't believe that. But they did believe almost everything else he was teaching about celibacy, about electricity and his electric experiments. So yeah, Fort Myers is definitely sacred grounds.
You know, hollow. I've always said this, and I always get slack from the flat earthers. Flat earthers
Yeah.
don't like me because I'm not married to the ball, but I'm also not married to flat earth. I'm in between. I think it's fluid. So, but I've always said that there is more evidence of hollow earth than there is of flat earth.
Wow.
Because I've always said that, it pisses people off, but I'm a logical guy to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
And you can take me to these underground tunnels. You can take me to these caves, Mammoth Cave that goes into, right, they don't know where it ends. Ruby Falls, right, this place underground, these falls underground. You have entire forests underground in China. You have I believe it's in Vietnam, they have entire ecosystems underground, right? Animals that only exist in that underground area. And then you're going to tell me, oh, I figured out the science and it's flat. Sure. All right. Cool. I respect it, right? I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
It still is not proof to me, you know what I mean? Like, unless you fire me out into a rocket, if you want to believe in rockets, and you show me that it's, right, from the outside, that it's a disc, or they don't even like that model, if it's whatever it is. And I think that they always have a rebuttal for everything else, but I think that's besides the point. So the idea of trying to find the picture of the inverted, right? I know what you're talking about. I thought it was in this book, but I'm going to bring something up that, oh, here it is.
The eggshell?
Here it is right here.
Oh.
This is from his book, The Cellular Cosmogony, or The Earth a Concave Sphere, Part 1. And he
Got
wrote
a copy of it back there. I don't want to get it, though.
So the cellular cosmology, or Koreshan astronomy. And so he pretty much, what you were spot on, bro. We are looking, whenever we are living on the inside shell, and then whenever we see the stars and everything, they're on the inside of that, right? We have different, you're talking about the indigenous people. They have different stories of these people coming out of the ground. You have Admiral Byrd, if you want to believe that account, and his whole thing with the Operation High Jump, with Antarctica and all that stuff. I mean, there are stories about it. So in the Bible, there are stories of Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
And I believe Hollow Earth, that's my favorite Earth model. Because I do believe, dude, I mean, we're in Florida. I don't know if you caught that episode that I did with Narco Longo where it was the diver. And as of recently, I've been having this anxiety of of getting swallowed up by a sinkhole.
Oh.
Because we did this video of this diver, bro, that they go into they find these holes and they'll dive into them. And bro, when they're in these caverns under neighborhoods, dude, it'll be a regular neighborhood, and underneath of it will be just extensive cave systems. And that's how we have sinkholes, because once that water starts eating away at the ground at the top, because it's all limestone, it's all Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
Once it opens up at the top, it caves in on itself. And we're talking about, bro, ceilings, 100 feet tall ceilings, right? Under full water. And then they're building on top of that. There's a reason why when you see the Giza Plateau and you just see the pyramids and nothing else next to them, the reason that there's nothing else next to them is because it's all tunnels and systems of catacombs and everything underneath the Giza Plateau. So if they were to build on top of there, it wouldn't hold. The foundation wouldn't hold. So similar to Florida, Florida is literally Swiss cheese underneath of it. And we have these extensive cave systems under, right now, it could be under our feet right now, bro. And we won't even know. I could be standing, right, with, let's say an example, 10 feet separating me from a 150-foot drop right now.
Fuck. Oh, now you're trying to give me the anxiety, bro. What?
So I'll be laying, there's stories of people laying in bed.
Oh, hell no.
That gets swallowed up by a sinkhole to never be seen again, bro. Can you imagine that, hearing the screams of somebody who you can't go save because they're that far down underground? You just got to let them go because there's nothing you can do about it.
It's freaky.
That's freaky, dude. So
did you ever just like dig holes as a kid in Florida?
Oh, I was born in Puerto Rico, and I came here when I was 7 or 8 years old. So yeah.
Me and my friends, like all the kids in the neighborhood, I don't know why, but we would just start dig. We had a lot next to my house, and we would just dig holes in this lot all day and make chairs out of things.
Yeah.
But one thing we learned pretty quickly is that you can only dig, honestly, like 5 feet before you start hitting water.
Yeah, 5 feet. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's crazy because
it depends on where the water table is, but yeah, I have a property that you dig 5 feet and you're already touching water.
Oh, so you be having multiple properties like that?
Yeah. So again, that's why I'm telling you, I know about the different layers of soil, because I've had to get studies done of like the different layers, and they have to drill down, and they'll bring out samples. And I mean, I've had that done to various places. So one of the more recent ones is 5 feet, and you're already touching. It's already water, bro.
Wow.
It's a swamp, dude. I mean, Florida's a swamp. But I wanted to talk about this Koreshan because you had Edison and Ford. And towards the end of their lives, they started to try and find, for a lack of a better term, the immortality key, right? In order to live forever. And I think that this plays a role. And you have, I think it's the last breaths of Ford, I think. in his house over on the East Coast. And you can also access Edison's lab. So he was doing alchemy towards the end of his life. He has a whole lab that you can go visit now today.
Oh, I've been in his lab in Fort Myers. I've been in his Fort Myers lab.
Is it in Fort Myers? Then I might be wrong.
They got one in Fort Myers. He's probably got labs all over.
Yeah, and they were trying to grow different trees. So, like, what if they were trying to grow the tree of Eden, right? And then that plays into the whole Narco Longo's idea that Florida was the Garden of Eden. It was Atlantis, right? So, what if they were importing all these different trees from all over the world? And the story is that they were trying to make rubber trees here for Firestone. Firestone was also one of them, one of the robber barons that was traveling around with these other guys, these super wealthy elites. You had Henry Flagler, Henry Plant, John D. Rockefeller. You had all the tycoons, the biggest names that have ever existed. And Florida was the last frontier. And then you had Henry Ford and Edison trying to find immortality. You know, they're trying to live forever. So you have Edison mixing things in his lab like an alchemist, trying to maybe perhaps find the Philosopher's Stone. And there's a book that this guy wrote, right? That I haven't really talked about this on any podcast, but not a lot of people know this. But we have this book, The Immortal Manhood, the laws and processes of its attainment in the flesh. Now, this is another book by your boy, Koresh. And I think he only wrote 2 books, okay? But The Immortal Manhood. And, right, Koresh, the author, didn't he believe that he was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ too, right?
Something like that. I mean, Koresh means something like savior, and that's why he changed his name to that. That's also why Waco dude changed his name to that too.
Oof. Okay. So we have this book here, which is really interesting because I found something in here that not a lot of people know, but right, the cellular cosmology, we have demonstrated the concavity of the earth, have defined the limitations of the alchemical organic universe in its material form, and have submitted to the student of the universology, an outline of the science of the functions of its organic structure. So, and he's going on and on and on. But when I was reading this and I was just going through it, where he talks about immortality and all these different things, like, okay, the Lord attained immortality in the body, arising materially from the grave, exhibiting his material form after the resurrection. He did not remain on or in the physical plane of being, after thus maturing his immortal life as the first fruits of immortality. Immortality, okay? The immortal life of the Lord was transient, his visible form being dissolved and absorbed. So I'm reading this, bro, and like towards the end, I find something. We have the Order of Melchizedek.
Here we go.
All right, I don't know much about that, but it has to do with fire, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you can enlighten me on that, because I don't know much about that. But he's trying to talk about God and all this stuff. But we go all the way down here, and I found something super interesting that relates to a lot of my research in alchemy and what I believe these guys were trying to do. But where was it? He talks about trying to birth, right, a being.
Oh, here we go.
Without the use of a woman. And I don't know, bro. What does that sound like to you?
Sounds like a homunculus confirmed right there.
I'm gonna hit the button, bro. I'm gonna hit the button. I got you. I got the homunculus confirmed button. I got one.
Homunculus confirmed. Certified homunculus.
So I'm trying to find it here. So the Lord Jesus was the offspring of the human race because the Lord impregnated the race for the purpose of generating a son to inherit the throne of God. And right here, father would become all right. So son is generated to sit on the throne of his father. The father would become obscure and obliterated. The created son is absorbed into the central throne of deity. He enters in conjunctive unity and is made one with the central consciousness. So this dude's like talking about like some weird stuff, right? He enters the right hand. Go ahead.
Just as a quick joke, you realize that most of my listeners are like 15-year-old skateboarders who like just started smoking weed, and now they're like hearing this homunculus talk. I think it's awesome that they need to be listening to stuff like this.
So I'm gonna find the part where he says that they're trying to generate a being. I have to find it, bro. I read this a while ago, and I told people about. I've only told like one person about it. They didn't know about it either.
I read the opening chapter when I was like on a plane, and I like had like a shot of gin in my system, and I think I just like fell asleep, bro, because it was like crazy. I was like, oh man, I'm on a plane right now reading this on my phone. I just had my plane shot that I always get. I was like, oh man, I gotta go to sleep. But no, this book, you're inspiring me to really get through this one. I've only ever read the Cellular Cosmogony, and I read there's something there's a book about his life called like Immortality, the Quest for Immortality or something. I read that too. That's a biography on him.
The what was it?
It's called like The Quest of Immortality, or The Immortality of Man.
The Immortal Manhood, is not this one?
Well, that's that one. I'm talking about there's like a biography about him called like The Quest.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, haven't ever heard of that one, but it's a really interesting concept, bro, and like what they were getting into. If I could find this damn thing. I read this like probably a year ago, I want to say, and I'm trying to find it. I know it was towards the end of the book, but I should have highlighted it, but
well,
yeah, I'll find it.
You find it. Another interesting bit of his lore that is kind of crazy and sad at the same time is like, so he died after getting into a fight with the sheriff in town, because the sheriff was just done with his bullshit. He's like, man, you came to my town and now you're creating the New Jerusalem, and you're like, all the women are, here's another bit. All the women in town were joining his commune because he was actually like one of the first feminists out there. And one of the whole celibacy thing attracted women because back in those times, women were getting married to men that they did not even like, and they were like having to have sex with them all the time. So they would join Cyrus Teed's commune that preached celibacy to get away from their husbands. Like, just regular women were joining this thing for that reason. So the sheriff's mad at what he's doing. He's like, man, you came to my town. All the women are going to your thing. I'm like sick of you talking about getting electrocuted. It's all weird. So him and the sheriff get into a fight, and the sheriff knocks him out. And he has some sort of I don't know, he gets knocked out, and he does not come back, really. Goes into a coma. So his followers prepare for his death. And he told his followers he was going to resurrect. So he eventually dies in a bathtub. But his followers keep him there for weeks on end. And he said he's going to resurrect, so they just keep him in a bathtub. And on Christmas Day, they actually had a viewing, and all the followers were just surrounded because they thought he was going to come back on Christmas Day. And like, there are children at this event. This is like 1908 or something, like it's like the early 1900s. There's little kids on Christmas. Instead of having a nice Christmas Day, they're looking at this dead body that's like all bloated to see if he's gonna come back. And I mean, if I was a kid on Christmas back then, I would be pissed. I would be like, man.
How wild is that though, bro? That you can, right? Some people can, and that's why I admire people who are into like sales and stuff like that. Because I'm an introvert, bro. I'm like a hermit, right? I'm the Hierophant, right? I'm the hermit card, whatever. And my social battery is like, I can only take so much social interaction. It's funny because I talk to people on a podcast, but it's different because it's through a screen type of thing. I don't know. So, but the fact that you can convince somebody through faith, because that's the tech. Faith is the tech, where you can make someone believe something so hard, bro, so hard that they'll believe whatever you tell them. It's just. Yeah. You just got to flip something in their mind that they're going to believe whatever you feed them. Right. And that's why religion is such a powerful thing. And it continues to resonate even till this day. I mean, there are still debates on, there's debates whether the earth is flat or not. There's debates whether Jesus existed or not. there's debates on a lot of things, like how we mentioned at the beginning. What are we here for?
Yeah.
And I think that by researching these topics, it kind of sheds a little bit of light on what we're trying to figure out. But this dude made people believe that he was going to come back after the fact. And they had his body in a bathtub, and they waited days and days for him to reincarnate.
And then the state ended up having to get involved. The government got involved. There was like, you cannot keep this body like this because it was bloated. You can find a pic. There's a picture of it too. It's disgusting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you could pull it up, but it's I warn you, it's disgusting. I have it printed in a book back there. Look up like Teed bathtub, Cyrus Teed bathtub. It's pretty gruesome, and you can look at that photo and you could see what these kids were seeing on Christmas Day. Pretty horrific. Pretty
crazy.
Yeah.
That's pretty disgusting.
I don't know if you want to put that on there, but I wouldn't. Yeah. Anyways, but
what
so the
government,
the government was like, "Yo, you can't have this man like this." Like, so they ended up having to bury him. They didn't want to bury him, but they had to bury him, and they buried him off the coast of Fort Myers Beach. Fort Myers Beach, right here. Check this. I got it tatted. That's where I'm from. Fort Myers Beach. Anyways, they buried him on Fort Myers Beach, and just like within the same year, a storm came through and totally washed his grave away into the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. And the only thing that came back that they could retrieve was the headstone. And his headstone says, Cyrus Teed, Shepherd of Israel.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, and his casket is lost away.
So through electricity, this dude, there's something rewired in his brain that he believed he was the reincarnation of, this Messiah figure, right?
Yeah.
And he said he had a vision. God was a woman, and it showed him. It makes me think of that book, Ethiodorpa. I've been meaning to cover it on the Occult Book Club, but it's about this guy that gets led into Hollow Earth by this being. It's like a faceless being.
Whoa.
Like a doppelganger looking type of thing. Where it was like, I don't know if you've ever read the book. I'll send it to you, but it's really interesting. It was illustrated by Augusta Knapp, the guy that did the plates for Manly P. Hall in his The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Hopefully I'm saying his name. So it's Augustus Knapp. Yeah, Augustus Knapp, and I'm sure everyone has seen. Let's pull it up here.
The cover of the book.
Yeah, so he did all these plates. He did this plate. He did this plate. He did all the plates of the cover, and then everyone has seen this Pythagorean. He drew that, and he also did Manly P. Hall's tarot deck as well. So again, this is from the book right there. So this is like,
I heard you got one of those recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I got a couple actually, just in case it sold out. But this is the guy, bro. He was, again, an esotericist, occultist probably too, and he illustrated this book. Check how trippy this is, bro. It's called Ethiodorpa, or the End of the Earth.
That is nuts.
Yeah, it's like this being that comes out, and I think he convinces him to like take some psychedelics or something like that, and it takes him on this journey, bro. It's a trippy book.
Yeah.
And I've been meaning to cover it, but I keep reading and then I just keep not recording the episode.
That reminds me of this old manga. I mean, this is just totally modern, but that old manga, it's like a Hollow Earth manga about like everybody has a place in the earth. Like, it's like, so there's holes in the earth that everyone has their own. It's like the perfect shape of their body. So I got one for me, you got one for you, and there's a hole. And like something causes these people to go into these holes that are perfectly shaped like them, but then they just start falling down slowly and slowly. But slowly, the shape of the whole becomes less and less perfect for them and more messed up until they come out the other side like totally mangled. Like
Wait, what?
basically
What?
the whole shrinks. There's a picture of it.
What manga is this?
I really wish I knew. I really got to get my recall game. Just look up like Hollow Earth manga or like manga like hole in the earth.
So there's a storm in
I'm gonna
here,
look it
bro.
up too.
We got the Florida afternoon storms thundering outside right now. So, yeah, I looked that up because I'm trying to find the reference to the homunculus in this. I know I saw it a while ago, and I can't find it now. But yeah, if anyone wants to check it out, it's the Immortal Manhood, the Laws and Processes of Its Attainment in the Flesh. Because, again, this is what he was promising to people, and that's why people were coming over to him to try and see how they could live forever, right?
Yeah, I found the manga I was talking about is called The Enigma of Amigari Fault. That picture from the manga looks exactly like the drawing you just showed me.
The Enigma of the Amigari Fault. All right.
Amigari.
Amigari, I found it here. Bro, what?
Basically, you go in and it's perfectly but then you come out the other end and it's all freaky.
What the heck? I never heard of this, bro. Right here. Yeah.
But I remember there's something in the story like something beckons them to go into their hole. Then it reminds me of what you were talking about.
You hear the thunder,
Mr.
bro?
Nap. Oh, I hear that.
Yeah. So the creation of was the Elohim, the sons of God, or the gods. They were also male and female in each form, like the Son of God, who was a parent of 144,000, the offspring of the first creation. 1900 years ago, we had again the first creation. Now comes the second in order of the tree of life. So this dude's writing about all this stuff, bro. Returns to the time. I'll find it.
Well,
I'll just post it in the description after I find it.
One thing I wanted to bring up too, when you brought up the order of Melchizedek, I can't really speak on that as much as I'd like to. I've studied it. There's a guy named Brian Scott on YouTube who has a really good breakdown of Melchizedek, but it's something weird in the Bible. It's like they say that Jesus was in the order of Melchizedek, and as Christians might hear that and be like, so who's this Melchizedek guy? If Jesus is in the order of him, what does that mean? And then you look into him. And Manly P. Hall has that book called Melchizedek and something about the order of fire. And he mentions that it has to do with the 33rd degree knowledge. So
I'm not in any secret society, so I don't know what that means, but yeah, I've seen references to the initiate to the flame.
I'm not either. But
and I don't think that any of these guys have any knowledge that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get from nowadays the internet. You know what I mean? If they're doing some weird butt stuff, probably, right? But it's nothing that we don't know about. Oh, wow. You know what I mean? Like if they're doing something to, right? Because the whole thing about the magician, the physician, he's occulting things, and he is extracting occulted natures of the body or of nature and exposing them for the benefit of man. So, right, this idea goes back. The magician is linked to a lot of things in history. You have the architect as magician, cartographer as magician, physician, magician. It's almost the same thing. And back then there was no line. Like they believed in supernatural viruses and sicknesses and illnesses, right? And if it was supernatural, then it had to be cured by supernatural means. And magic served as another way of healing people. Like abracadabra was to heal you from a fever. Like that's what it was.
I'm gonna use that next time. Really.
There might be code for something, bro. Who knows?
Well, one thing, this is one thing I tell people all the time because, you know, I don't. We might actually differ on this opinion here. We might get some static going, but I remember I've been a conspiracy theorist like basically my entire life at this point. And one thing that conspiracy theorists often believe is like no information should be hidden at all. Like we need to expose all knowledge. Like knowledge should be for everyone to have. And I used to believe that as a youngin. Just like yeah, we should know everything. Like let's disclose everything to everybody and just free information for everything. But now as I get older and I start understanding more and more, I start realizing it's like I always say this to people. If all this supernatural stuff is true and you can levitate and you can do all that, we have to hide that information. Because then we got people at 7-Eleven just teleporting in and out of shit. Like the world would be madness if we allowed that stuff. Imagine you got the 7-Eleven worker just teleporting in and out of shit. Like you know how many crackheads are out there right now? Like imagine if we gave crackheads this knowledge. So we got to protect, like certain knowledge is sacred, should be protected.
We got to protect our 7-Elevens from these teleporting homeless crackheads.
Yeah.
Bro, let's start a petition on change.org. We got to stop the teleporting interdimensional crackheads, dude. I'm going to start that movement. 100%.
I'm just glad certain knowledge is occulted, so we don't have that problem, because shit would be crazy.
So I think that, right, are you able to teleport? I don't know. I mean, maybe perhaps. I do believe that there are places of high strangeness around the world that you're able to, right, that act as gateways or portals to other places. But also, right, one of the Hermetic principles is all is mental. So what if it's more of like a mental state? What if it's more of entering a different state of consciousness, like how I mentioned earlier, making yourself believe that you teleported? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if you believe that you teleport? Does it then make it real? Like, do you then teleport because you're there mentally? Or how does it work, right? So I think there's a twofold. Maybe back then, before they perverted our language and our alphabets and all these different things, and they watered down our powers, maybe it was like Harry Potter, where you could wave a wand around and open up the wall, right, and run through the brick wall, or open up the cabinet to Narnia and cross over to the other side. Maybe it was like that.
Bro, now if we had that now, there would be like a crackhead wearing like SpongeBob underpants, and he's just like teleporting
in a row, bro, like a magician's row. What's that?
He just goes to the wall and gets some crack.
Yeah, bro, absolutely. We gotta stop these interdimensional crackheads, bro. These magical alchemical crackheads. So I don't know, man. I think about it, man. If Crowley, right, one of the more notorious occultists of all time, or even let's take John Dee, for example, who quite literally is the archetypal Faust. Like, they say that the story of Marlowe was modeled after John Dee. Tempest was modeled after John Dee. And if we were to take his idea that this was a man who had the biggest library in Europe at one point, and he believed that he had achieved and obtained all the worldly knowledge possible, and that he needed to refer. Oh yeah, bro,
that's beautiful, bro.
And he needed to refer to other worldly means to obtain knowledge. And the reason that he was interacting with these entities on the other side is because they kept promising him the secrets of the universe, everything, right? But these beings also wanted to bring forth the Ragnarok. They wanted, or the apocalypse, right? The end of the world.
Yeah.
They presented him texts and grids and tablets that if they were to recite, they would quite literally destroy reality itself. So when Edward Kelly is doing these seances, these angels are not saying the words of these certain aethers, and they are pointing with a stick to the letters, and they're doing it backwards. So they're not saying the letters, they are pointing to the letters with a stick, and they're doing it backwards because they said if we speak it, or spell it for you and you recite this, you will bring forth the guardian of that dimension, which is like which is an angel that doesn't give a shit about you and is gonna kill you. There's a story, bro. And I'm meaning to do like a deep dive on John Dee, but there's a lot of interesting stories, and one in particular is when these angels show up, or these entities show up, and they have shovels, spades in their hands, right? And I think a spade is a shovel, spade,
or a trowel or something.
No, so yeah, a spade, a tool with a sharp edge, typically rectangular metal blade and a long handle. So yeah, so you got a spade, right?
Yeah.
And so they have spades in their hands, and they go up to Edward Kelly and they're like, "Yo, who called us?" And Edward Kelly's like, "Yo, I ain't call you, dog." Like, "Yo, who called us?"
Yeah,
and
right.
Edward Kelly's like, "Yo, I ain't call you, I promise you." Who called us?
Right.
And the third time, he's like, "I ain't call you, bro." And these angels start to beat the shit out of him, bro, with these shovels. And Edward Kelly is like, like they say that they broke his ethereal arm, like they broke his arm.
Wow.
And John Dee writes how there was like red marks on his arm from these angels beating the dog shit out of him, bro.
Yeah.
Like they're and then there's also another one where this entity shows up and is like, "Yo, who summoned me?" The day before that, he had given him some assignment to memorize this.
There's a synchronicity of all this. I'll tell you in a second.
So they wanted him to memorize it. Wanted it to memorize an alphabet, and I'm paraphrasing, of course.
Wow.
But I wanted him to memorize this alphabet, and Edward Kelly was too tired to memorize the alphabet or something like that. And he had it. Point is that he hadn't done it. He hadn't. And when he tells the entity, he's like, "Yeah, I don't remember it. Like, I didn't study it."
I tell you what, these guys have the craziest stories.
So he, all of a sudden, Edward Kelly drops on the floor, screaming in agony and pain. And apparently the angel, the entity, had grabbed him and was squeezing him. And squeezing him and squeezing him, and Edward Kelly's screaming in pain. And then the angel lets him go, and now Edward Kelly knows the entire alphabet.
Wow.
So through this process, this entity changed Edward Kelly's DNA and restructured his brain or something to where he was able to learn these sigils, these numbers, these alphabets, which also, right, the Enochian alphabet, which also, relating to what I said at the beginning of mathematics, a lot of these numbers, a lot of these sigils and things looked a lot like numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So hinting at, right, if there are things that exist outside of reality, what if they're mathematical? And a lot of the descriptions of these angels were like geometric shapes and patterns and things. So almost things makes you think of, they say that they weren't doing psychedelics, but it makes you, I don't know if you've ever done DMT or not, but it makes me think of that, where people talk about like the Alex Gray paintings, where it's like all the, a Russian doll, and whenever it's like a painting inside of a painting inside of a painting type of thing like that. Well, these entities, I've heard of them, like they were like cones with like fire eyes and a sword in one hand. And then there's like the other more Nordic, Pleiadian looking entities.
I've purposely never done DMT because I see that as like going to the final level of a video game, like when I'm still at like level 5 right now, like I'm trying to, get my power up, level up before I see shit like that. But,
you haven't gotten to interdimensional crackhead level yet, bro?
No.
Is that what the 33rd degree is about?
I do. I did have a short story I wrote where like there are these the elites disguise themselves as crackheads on the street, like homeless people, and then they go inside their tent and go into a hollow earth and go down into the earth, and then they have like all these like computers and technologies down there, but when you see them, they just look like a crackhead, but it's really like Klaus Schwab and whatnot. But one thing I said, the synchronicity of all this, I had a homie recently, like this just happened a few days ago. He's Spanish, and he went into a botanica with his girl, and this like dude in the botanica was like gave him a
bodega, you mean?
no a botanica.
What is that?
You don't know? Oh, it's like mostly a Spanish or Caribbean magic shop where they like, if you're into Santeria or voodoo, botanica.
I've heard bodega. I've never heard of botanica.
Nah, botanicas, they got them, they usually got them in the hoods and whatnot. They got them all through Florida, bro. It's basically a voodoo shop,
Really?
a witch
Oh.
doctor shop.
Oh yeah, botanica. Yeah, I've never even. Wow. Witchcraft and spiritual store that carries
Yeah.
crystals, tarot decks. Okay.
So my homie was in one of those, and he got spooked because this guy was like grabbing, like the shop owner was like, I want to talk to you. And he grabbed his arm, and he was like doing like sigils with his like hand or mudras with his hands, and like signals and stuff, and grabbing his arm and like telling him about his whole life story and telling him like where he was from. Like he's from a small town. This guy, he's like, you're from this town. Like the guy.
Oh, he was talking about your friend's life, not his
Yeah.
life.
Nah, he was talking about his friend's life to him, saying all this stuff that he shouldn't have known.
What the heck, bro?
And it was like an old dude. And it
Yeah,
was
bro.
like
I mean, listen, dude. I
why I
think
brought that
that.
up is what you said about they grabbed his arm and he knew everything. It's like that's what
Mhm.
he was doing to him. And then another thing was too, he saw there was some like weird prayer thing, and he knew it was some sort of like spell, so he didn't read it out loud, but it freaked him out. And he came to me because he was kind of freaked about it. I'm like, well, you didn't read it out loud. That's the best thing. And he's like worried that he's cursed now, but I was like, dude, you didn't read it out loud. I'll tell you this: you're in
Wait,
the
what? Say that again. That he gave to him something.
Nah, he's seen in the shop like some sort of weird prayer that was like had to
Okay.
do with like voodoo or Santeria and
Mhm.
whatnot.
Mhm.
And he like read it, like he read a little bit of it, then he got freaked out, but he was worried he was cursed from it, and he came to me asking for advice. I was like, bro, if you didn't read it out loud, you're good. And I'll tell you this, you're in the clear for right now. But if you think about this shit too much, yeah, like I say you gotta
Mhm.
stay away from that thing, because he was worried he's cursed. I'm like, you're not cursed right now, but if you go down that rabbit hole, I say you shouldn't,
Mhm.
But it
Yeah,
was reminding me what you were telling me.
I'm careful with like what I read too, and there have been things that kind of like linger or whatever. I call it lingering, but when I'll invoke like Jesus Christ's name, bro. I mean that because I consider myself a Christian, not the best Christian, but I do consider myself a Christian at heart because that's what I was born with. And whenever I do feel like there's something like that, I'll ask for protection or guidance or whatever it is through the name of Christ, because it is a powerful name. And yeah, that's really weird. But the voodoo aspect of it all is the practitioners. What they do is they open themselves up to these entities, and the entities come down and they inhabit their bodies.
Yeah.
So if they're able to do extracurricular things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do, that would explain it, that they're being taken over by another worldly entity, right?
Yeah,
Something
I'm
far
a
beyond.
Christian as well,
Mhm.
and I stick mostly. I love Christian mysticism, and because they get, the whole thing with the modern church is they just are basically say everything is evil, and they just think they're stupid as fuck. Basically, I remember one of the last churches I was going to, they were like, guys, let's watch Star Wars and see the message of Christ in Star Wars. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Yeah, whatever. Anyways, so, but then, you know, just to share a little bit of my personal story, I grew up with basically no religion at all. I was born to like a hippie mother and like an agnostic father. So I did not grow up with church at all. I found this later on in my life. And when I was a kid, church turned me off because like it just seemed all the church that I had seen was so simple minded. Like there wasn't any depth to the mainstream church that I seen as a child. But growing up, or starting to get into like Christian mysticism, they actually did have some of the answers I seeked, like the deeper things I would think about in life, especially Gnostic stuff too. Like, for instance, one of the questions I always had as a kid is like, and I don't want to piss off any of your listeners, but you're like the NPC question, like, do you believe that there are some people that are NPCs in this world and whatnot?
Yeah, that's a question that does trigger people because you are like because I've covered it before, dehumanizing people. And my answer to that, it's shifted a little bit. And I would say that there are people who are either from a parasitic standpoint stuck in that NPC mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
I would agree with you. Yeah.
They're suppressed to be in that NPC mindset. Now, could there be, because NPC, everyone thinks about it from the video game point of view, somebody who is there in the background. Now, if we want to get philosophical, I'm part of your unreality and you're part of my unreality. Because at the end of the day, I can't prove that you're a thinking thing and vice versa. And cogito ergo sum, that was one of the things that René Descartes brought forth. And that's why he even came up with that, because he said, if my reality can be obstructed and obscured and warped, my senses, and perhaps there's an evil demon, Descartes talked about the evil demon controlling his life, then I can't trust my senses. Therefore, there's only one thing that I can prove. I think, therefore I am. The only thing that I can prove is that I'm a thinking thing.
Yeah.
So we are all part of each other's unreality, because I can never prove to you that you're thinking, and you can't ever prove to me that I'm thinking.
You prove that Thomas is thinking?
I don't know. I think Thomas is an AI, AI generated character, bro. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah. Well, he's a figment of my imagination.
The Gnostics kind of have an answer to that question that satisfied my wondering about NPCs. Because I've wondered about NPCs ever since I can remember. Ever since I was a child, I was like, why is this person boring and this person is interesting? Like, why? It's like even kids can think stuff like that. And I thought that, and the Gnostics say that there's three kinds of people. There's the people trapped in the material world completely. Those kind of people. They love food, drugs, sex. They just be loving that so much. Then there's the people that's kind of in the middle. That's like, that's probably more like me or you, where we like that stuff too, but we wish we did.
We're aware of it.
Yeah, we're more aware. And then there's a third kind that's like truly enlightened, and I say that's only reserved for people like Buddha or something. Those are the enlightened. They've passed that. The Gnostics say that's the three kinds of people, but I would agree where you as long as you're in a living body, you have the ability to level up as much as you can. Like the people who are so-called trapped, they can untrap themselves. As long as they're living and breathing, they can still untrap themselves.
You're right, but and this is why I love alchemy so much, because they were asking these questions. Right? We're talking about this Coruscant guy, and I'm scanning the text right now so I can search it. Mm-hmm. So I might just post the text after the fact, and I'll post the link to it in the description where I found it. But
nice.
Point being that alchemy, they were trying to, one of the magnum opus of alchemy, or opus, I guess, I don't know how you say opus in plural, but the different workings was the elixir of life. You had the divine androgen, you had the homunculus, you had the philosopher's stone. There's different things that you can achieve in alchemy to transcend reality and dissolve out of this dimension. And I would agree with the Gnostics, but the problem with that ideology of achieving that third level, right, achieving that Godhead, because essentially the Gnostics believe that, right, that first person, if they were to succumb to lust or greed or sloth or whatever, and one of the 7 deadly sins They believe that all these things in the world were different demons that would attach themselves to people. And so if you were to transcend through the use of gnosis, where you're supposed to transcend through the different layers of reality, and to them the different layers of reality was our solar system, was the 7 celestial bodies. They believe that every single orbit of the 7 celestial bodies was a different dimension. And in order to cross over, and you were looking at demons in the sky with every single planet. And when you would cross each and every single orbit, right? Because I think space isn't what they've told us it is. Maybe, I don't know if it's fake and gay, but it's not what they've told us. Mm-hmm. And when they were transcending, and we've seen this in the movie, right? 2001 Space Odyssey, where they go into the portal. Is it Jupiter or something like that, or one of the moons or something like that? Right? They have this in these movies. Yeah. But they essentially believe that you needed to learn the name of a demon in order to overcome it. They say that in order for you to have control over a demon, you need to know its true name. Yep. So through gnosis, they were learning, right, essentially the names of these demons to cross over, because there's different occult groups that are solar, and this is why I think that space is almost like a rite of passage or a tool that occultists use to transcend to other dimensions, because they call Pluto the gate. I've heard it used. Pluto represents the very end of our perceivable reality. And in order for you, and somebody asked me today, they go, well, would you start at Pluto and go all the way to the sun? Because I've heard people call the sun a portal before.
This is crazy.
Or, and I said, well, according to Gnostic cosmology, you transcend to the gate that is Pluto, and Pluto opens up to that next realm of reality, because it represents the edges of reality. Right? And there's that debate of, is Pluto a planet or not? Right? And they took it out of the solar system for a while. Did they bring it? I think they brought it back, right? They brought it back, and they considered it a planet again, or no?
I don't know, because I don't follow the mainstream.
Well, they had taken Pluto off, right? Yeah, so we grew up all our lives that there were 9 planets, right? Yep. It was 9, right? Am I right?
8. I don't know.
Is that Mandela effect, bro? I just activated Mandela effect in you, dude?
Dude, I mean...
Bro, Pluto was ruled not a planet, like a little bit ago.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so, but there's 9 planets, so right? Come on, dude. Help me out, bro.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you this. I'm so messed up from shit. I can't even remember the months anymore, because I be following the old calendar.
All right, how many planets are there? There are 8 planets in the solar now, right? Because Pluto was taken out, right? 146 moons, a bunch of comets, asteroids, and space rocks, ice, and several dwarf planets such as Pluto. The 8 planets are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So they took Pluto out, okay? They took it out because it was too small. But according to occultists, from my research and what I've read, Pluto represents that gate. And somebody asked me, do you enter down into our solar system in that gate, or do you go to it? And I would say you go to it if you're following Gnostic cosmology, which we know that they wiped out the Gnostics because, again, they were going against the mainstream narrative. So I think space is like some sort of initiatory, right? If you look at the launching of rockets, it's very ceremonial in nature. What does the rocket represent? What does the sky represent? I mean, it's like a very sexual ritual that they're doing in real time when they make everybody watch. Then you have Artemis, you have the dragon rocket, you have like all these different names, these occult names to these organizations and what they're using. So it's like
11.
Apollo 11, like Apollo, yeah, exactly. So I don't know, man. I think I think there's a lot of things at work in this realm, this thing that we call reality. But back to the NPC thing, I don't believe that there are just hollow people who are imaginary. I think it's more of a mindset that people fall in through the exterior stimuli of this reality something they're lower spiritually or vibrationally where they're able to get taken over.
Yeah, and, I believe that fully too. There are no lost causes on this. As long as they live and breathing, God has given them a chance to get up.
No, absolutely. Yeah, but that's a very touchy topic. I've done numerous episodes on. Not numerous, but I've done like 2 or 3 episodes on it, and I've brought up the idea of people who don't have inner monologues. There's some people who don't have inner monologues, but does that mean you don't have a soul? You know?
I think people just don't have inner monologue because they probably be just filling their inner monologue with other shit. Like, you know, I listen to so many podcasts, but at the end of the day, I have to tell myself no more of this just for a little bit so I can have my inner monologue. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I can't have my inner monologue as one-on-one 24/7 because then what am
Yeah,
I?
you don't want that, bro.
Like,
100%, you don't want that.
nah, I don't believe there are true NPCs because everyone's got a chance, but people can get distracted, especially if you're on a lower frequency.
Mm-hmm. And you just get sucked up in that cycle of like having to work and having to, again, like how we talked about at the beginning, being stuck in the matrix. And I think that really wears on you, and
Right.
it gets to people to where some people have breaks, bro. And
For real.
you know, if they can't decipher what's going on in their reality, then, but I'm not here to wake anybody up. Whoever hears my message and listens to my show, I feel that they were meant to be there, and they were meant to be listening to me on the show, and you know, and taking that message for whatever reason, you know.
Mhm.
And that's why I don't debate people. I don't believe in having to convince somebody of your ideologies. I believe in just talking about things and bringing awareness, because a lot of people ask me, "Oh, what does it all matter? What's the end goal, or why do these elites do this, and why all these different things?" Well, it's, you know, there's various things that they could use it for. They could use it for exertion of power, for control, and a lot of them either use it personally to achieve that godhead, how you were talking about, right? That third level of person.
Mhm.
But some of the methods, bro, that I've come across to achieve that godhead are pretty gruesome. You know, they're pretty out there. You got the, as of recently, I'm writing a chapter on in my book about Soku Shimbutsu,
That
and
sounds scary, and I don't know what it is, but it sounds scary.
it's this your self mummification, and it takes the
Oh,
monks 3,000 years, and at the end of it, bro, they mummify themselves while alive,
yeah.
and if they succeed, they become what they believe to be Buddha,
Wow.
a talisman, and then they're taken out and they're worshipped because they believed that they are in a state of trance, a deep sleep, if you will.
Mhm.
But the idea, can you imagine, bro, going through the grueling, I believe it's 8,000 days or something. It's about 8 to 10 years, or I'm sorry, 3,000 days, 8 to 10 years, and mummifying yourself. Can you imagine going through that? The Chinese alchemists would drink mercury to try and live forever.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them finding like statues of like monk statues, and then they find out there's a human being inside there that
Yeah.
trapped himself in there.
Mm-hmm. That's what they believed in, bro. They believed in that they would achieve immortality and escape samsara, or
Mhm.
reincarnation, through suffering as much as possible in this existence to be able to escape from this reality. That's what they believed.
Mhm.
So imagine that, bro. Imagine the level of commitment. Imagine the amount of faith that you would need to have in order to believe that. So it goes back to what I was talking about, faith being a sort of technology that can be used to obscure people and maybe perhaps put them into that NPC mindset. Who
Faith is
knows?
the tech.
Faith is the tech, yeah, bro.
Yeah, faith is the tech. I want that on a shirt. I'll have that on a shirt.
Is the technology, yeah, bro. I believe that. That's my personal opinion. And growing up in a religious household and all that stuff, and just reading about all this crazy stuff. I mean, look at this Coruscant guy,
Yeah.
bro. It's
Dude,
wild, man. The truth is stranger than fiction, bro.
how's our time right now? I see one
We're at an
hour.
hour and 30, yeah.
Okay. Do you or how long do you want to go for?
However long I can go till to the top of the hour.
Okay. Dude, I could talk to you forever. One thing I was thinking about when you're talking about, can you imagine mummifying yourself? Have you ever seen the show Lodge 49 or heard of it?
No, what's it about? I'll write it down now though. Lodge 49. Is it on
Yeah,
Netflix?
I think it's on Hulu. I don't watch any shows. Like disclaimer, I don't watch anything, but I had an old girlfriend a couple years ago tell me we had to watch this show, and I sat through
Shout
it.
out to her, right, bro?
Yeah, shout out that old girlfriend, because that show, I'm bringing it up now because it's a really good show. It's about a surfer dude. He's a surfer dude just like you or me. He's a dude. Just a cool dude. And he's surfing and he gets bit by a snake and has some sort of like religious revelation or whatever. And then basically something draws him to like a lodge, like a fraternal lodge, basically like a Masonic lodge. And the entire show, it's like a sitcom about a cool dude going through the rituals of a lodge. And it's super cool, bro. It only ran for like a season or two. It got canceled for some reason. But it's like, it's a super cool show. But anyways, there's this epic scene of like the leader of the lodge who's like, yeah, Lodge 49.
This one?
Yeah, that's the show. That's the dude right there. And then you could see there's like a picture of him in a robe and whatnot. Because
What the heck? Yeah, I've never heard of this show, dude.
oh, it's an AMC. Dude, it's basically a show about a guy going through like the rituals of some sort of secret society. But there's an epic scene where the leader of the lodge, he's like the most occult dude. He's like the most into it of all time. He's kind of like a skinny like dweeb kind of guy. He's kind of a nerd. He's like an occult nerd, and he's decides that he's gonna like hermetically seal himself in a room until he dies and like die inside of a casket and whatnot.
In this show?
Yeah. Yeah, in the show. Dude, the show is crazy. That's why I'm bringing it up. Basically, he makes like a tomb for himself, and he's got his wife is in there with him. She's like, "Are you ready, baby? Are you ready to do the destiny?" Like, he's about to basically seal himself away till he dies so he can become enlightened and whatnot. And it's an awesome scene because it shows he's like scared and nervous, and he's like having second thoughts on everything.
Bro, and they show this guy mummified too here.
Yeah.
What the heck, dude? I've never heard of this thing before, but yeah, I mean, it comes to show, right? I've always talked about the cinemagicians. It comes to show that these people, they read these texts that we're deciphering and reading and all this stuff, and they write shows about it.
Yeah.
Right? And they put this in front of you without you even knowing what it's about.
And honestly, the show stopped on such a serious note that I personally, I was like, man, they canceled this show because it was getting too real. Like, it was getting legit. I recommend everyone check that show out if they're interested in these things. But yeah.
Because so they put this stuff out there, and we've always heard about, and I can't think of what the last movie was. It was a scary movie that recently, and I don't know if it was one of the Sinister movies or what it was, but it was a movie that recently, at the very beginning of it, was it Hereditary? That at the beginning of it goes based on true events or something like that. Have you seen that movie?
Ooh. Like I said, I don't watch anything because I'm scared of stuff. I don't like putting stuff in my brain like that. Really.
So, all right. Well, bro, Hereditary is a wild movie. Okay,
I've heard about it.
It's a crazy, crazy movie, and I think at the beginning of that movie, so see right here, is the movie Hereditary based on a true story? The script resembles a real-life incident from 2004 in Marietta, Georgia, in which John Kemper Hutcherson accidentally decapitated his childhood friend and passenger Frankie Brome on a telephone pole support wire after the latter had leaned his head from the vehicle to relieve the symptoms of his inebriation. So they say that part, I mean, you haven't seen the movie, but they say that part was the only true event, but the whole movie is crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil it for you, but yeah, it's pretty dark, dude. It gets dark quick.
Well, that's why I didn't watch it, because, like, first of all, I've heard somebody told me that A24 is like fully satanic, and I believe that.
That what?
A24, that film organization.
A24, I've never heard of them.
I'm pretty sure that's who produced that film.
Let's see here.
Everyone knows A24 from their like style. All their movies like look like that.
Yeah, distributed by A24. Interesting.
Yeah, A24 is really scary. Like one of my friends was telling me it's some scary stuff. That's why I don't watch things, because I'm aware of how I'm aware that this tech, like TVs and whatnot, I'm inputting stuff into my brain.
Yeah, they got Coppola.
Who is that?
Coppola, I'm sorry.
That's like a that guy.
He's related to Nicolas Cage.
Oh
The
wow.
Coppola family. He is the son of Francis Ford Coppola, which is Nicolas Cage's uncle.
Wow.
So again, they have the connection there with Nick Cage, and we have all these movies here: A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan III, Banana, The Bling Ring, Enemy, Under the Skin.
There's one that looks like it was released on June 6th. I always look at the dates of when things are released. That's like one of my things I like.
And so the conspiracy is that these movies are cursed. Ex Machina. Yeah.
It's not really. It's really just something my friend told me. But every movie I've seen by them has some sort of like occult, creepy thing.
The
about
Witch.
it.
I've heard about this movie too. That supposedly it was good. My friend told me. Yeah, I have, like, my wife doesn't like watching scary movies, and I know a lot of people who have told me that they don't like watching scary movies because it feels like it opens them to like a possession or something. But
I believe that.
if you look at the concept of a movie, right, we've been talking about magic and all these things, and sigils are a thing. And what sigils are meant to do, they are, in layman's terms, it's a symbol that can be binded to an entity or represent an entity, or you can charge it, right? It could go either way. And if you look at the concept of movies, and that's why I call them cinemagicians, and coincidentally enough, the famous Coppola, let me pull it up here, Francis Ford Coppola, he has this quote, which I'm going to pull up here. The quote goes, the quote is right here. I think cinema, movies, and magic have always been closely associated. The very earliest people who made film were magicians.
Yeah.
And this is one of the more influential directors in Hollywood of all time. So if you think of a movie and it's a whole bunch of sigils in conjunction, if you look at the concept of a movie theater and why they weren't shut down during that thing that happened in 2020, and on top of that, it was also part of a mimetic magic ceremony through Reddit with the whole AMC meme stock and how it was pumped, and GameStop and all these other things.
Yeah.
Right, so they wouldn't go out of business. Right, everybody save AMC. Right, they don't want to go out of business. Well, that was a ceremony that people were a part of. Right, so if you look at the concept of a movie theater during the Great Depression, I always wondered why some of the greatest movies were produced. I go, if the country was at the brink of bankruptcy and they were the people were unaliving themselves during this time of the Great Depression, and they called it a contagion that was running rampant through the markets. That's the word that they used in an article that I saw. Why did the greatest movies of all time come out during this time?
Right.
I asked myself that question. And the answer to that question was that people were experiencing and living through these movies in a form of escapism. So these movies were capturing people's consciousness essentially, and they were being transported away from this mundane reality that they were living in. They were living through the movie. They were living through the actors on the screen. So it makes you think of why William Shakespeare said, right? The world's a stage.
Oh, yeah.
And every man and woman has their entrances and exits.
Yeah.
And so, again, I think it's a very powerful thing. And if you look at the movie theater itself, it's a simulacra of a cave. You go there at night, right in the middle of the night,
It is Plato's cave.
It's MK Ultra, bro, is what it is at the end of the day. Like, you're
Well,
being
yeah,
flashed with a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
well, that's why I don't watch anything. And that's another thing too. Like, I mean, I'm gonna keep it real. I don't want to offend anyone, but it's like people ask me all the time, how do you find the time to do all this artwork and music? It's like, well, I don't watch anything at all. So that's one of the main things is like every time you watch something, you're basically living somebody else's life. Like Nicolas Cage is on the mind, like Treasure, National Treasure, or whatever. It's like when you watch a movie, you become them and you live their life for 2 hours. And if you're just doing that all the time, you're living everyone else's life except your own. So once you stop watching stuff, you basically you free up a lot of time. And then another thing is like, I don't allow, as an artist, I don't want to be influenced by everything else. Like I curate my own influences, you know. Some of the only time I really watch movies, I watch the same movie over and over again, just because it's kind of ritualistic and it influences me.
What
Like,
was that?
one of them is The Game, Michael Douglas. I've seen it like 50 times. It's just a beautiful film. Anyways, there's so much to say. Also, just piggybacking on the whole Hollywood conspiracies, you know, Hollywood Babylon by Kenneth Anger. That's one of the OG conspiracy books. He just passed away recently. Kenneth
Fuck
Anger.
that guy.
Yeah. I mean, he's a scary guy. They say he's the one who cursed Jimmy Page. Crazy stuff there. But I mean, yeah, I just fully believe personally Hollywood and mainstream entertainment is total garbage, and you really should not consume it as much as you can. I do sometimes, of course. You know, girlfriend might say, "Hey, baby, let's watch a movie." All right, fine, I'll sit there, but I really try not to as much as I can.
I'm gonna have to check this movie out, bro. I've never seen it. The Game sounds interesting. 1997, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful film, and like, dude, it's basically about a dude who's like a billionaire, and he's like jaded with life, and then there's like this elaborate game that's supposed to teach him the meaning of life.
Interesting.
And it's like a conspiracy type of movie. It goes.
It's like the OG Saw, right? It's like, what are you willing to give up, bro? What are you back again to the Faustian pack? Are you willing to saw off your foot to escape from here?
It's not like Saw though. It's not scary. It's not satanic. It's actually, I kind of had like a religious feeling when I watched it. There's kind of a lot of religious undertones. There's even a part where they like mention a Bible quote. There's a part where he's this millionaire and he can't like the point of the game is to figure out what the game is. That's the entire point of the game. And so he asked this one guy, he sees these guys talking about the game in a bar, and he's like, I just finished my game. So he just approaches them, and he's like, what is this game? And he said, I'll tell you what the game's about. And he says, just like the Bible says, as I once was blind, now I can see. And he just walks away all dramatic, like.
Yeah, like mad cryptic. Yeah, I'm gonna check it out, bro. I'm gonna download it and watch it. It sounds interesting.
It's a good one. It's beautiful. I could watch it 1,000,000 times. Never get sick of it.
Awesome, bro.
Dude, great show here. I really enjoyed this. This is my deepest episode of my show. I'll say that.
Yeah, dude, I had fun, man. It was a really fun conversation, and I'll put it out on my end after you put it out. I'll put it out
Nice.
a couple weeks after or something, so people can check it out.
Oh yeah,
this was fun.
Yep. So shoot. I guess my final words, I always like to end things on a positive note for the people. So just anyone who's made it to this far, who's listened to the entire thing, whoever you are out there, just know as long as you're living and breathing, you have a chance to elevate in this world. You know, if you've been in a slump lately, unslump yourself. It's as easy as that. Get outside. Getting outside is the best medicine to anything. You feel like you've been in a slump, just go find some woods and just be out there for a few hours and maybe even say a prayer and just get in that spiritual place in your mind. You'll unslump yourself. Just ask and you shall receive. Ask God, a higher power, God, could please unslump me, and you'll be unslumped. You know, as long as you're here and you're breathing, you got There's a way out. There's a way up. You just gotta believe in it, and you just gotta work. Everything takes work, but that's the beauty of life. So for all the people listening right now, just know you got this. Just keep it going, because as long as you're alive, your journey is still underway.
Love that, bro. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I know a lot of the topics that we talked about are pretty dark, but I believe that, again, sometimes you got to take the good with the bad, you know what I mean? But yeah, that was awesome closing words, man. Hopefully when you come down, because I know you're coming down here again to Florida, we can meet up and go to the grounds.
Oh, Korshan, I'll give you a whole tour. I'm moving like 5 minutes away from Korshan, and I plan to go there on a regular basis.
We'll get Narco Longo out there, and we'll shoot a video out there, bro.
Oh, I've talked to him about this too. He's down. I'll be pulling up.
We'll do it. We'll do it up, brother. Appreciate you, man. Thank you again for the invite.
Yes, thank you. Well, have a good one, bro. I don't know how this closes out on Streamlab.
I'll end it now. Yeah, everybody, you can check me out, tjojp.com, and all my stuff is on there. Appreciate you. And I always tell people, see you on the other side. So